This podcast has been brought to you by our Patreon account. After almost 4 years of producing free content in one way or another, we're finally opening up the doors for people to financially support us. For anyone out there that supports what we're doing, believes in us, believes in what we're trying to achieve, feel free to head over to patreon.com/XYadvisor. And second of all, we've finally converted our mainly dormant website into a membership site now. It is focused on training. You pay $49 a month. You get one credit to spend on the library of different training courses, and those training courses are constantly getting upgraded and constantly getting added to. We actually give half the money to the course providers because we value what they do. It's just a really good way for us to improve upon the financial advice community. So that's everything. Enjoy the podcast.
This session is also brought to you by Sunsuper. They're one of the fastest growing profit for members or industry funds in Australia. They were the very first of these funds to partner with advisors, and they've got functionality where you can actually link to your client's Sunsuper accounts and charge advice fees through the fund, as well as a number of tech innovations to make it easier for you to work with your clients. They've got great investments. They're really, really cheap. And their team are just generally legends. So if you haven't already connected with Sunsuper, give them a shout because they're doing some really cool stuff.
Paul, what's happening, my man?
Clay, I'm back. What happened there? How am I back in? Oh, I don't. Not you. No. I'm back. Thanks for inviting me back, guys. I feel very loved, very appreciated. I've had a lot of calls since the last time.
Better be worth it.
Well, I'll tell you what, and you know, I'm sure these clients won't worry me saying that, but I've actually got a few clients from
awesome.
last time.
Really cool.
People looking me up and finding the podcast and listening to the whole thing.
Who thought that's an endorsement?
And going, I didn't know you knew all that. I need you to sort me out.
We do a great job of making people look good on this podcast.
No.
I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah,
anyway.
that's what I was thinking as well. Mate, wait, so since we last caught up, you've been married.
Whoa. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How cool is that?
Very cool. Very cool.
Yes.
Yeah, my life's changed a lot in the last couple of years. So very
congratulations.
happy man. Thank you. And went on an amazing honeymoon through Europe and saw
beautiful.
Paris and London and Florence and and I love that lifestyle. You know, Australia we're such a nanny state, aren't we? You can't do anything here, right?
Yeah,
you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Especially in Sydney, like lockout laws and that.
Oh, it's
Over there.
Don't get me started.
You buy a beer anywhere.
Oh, it's great.
There's
Walk
people
through the
smoking in the
street,
restaurants.
yeah.
Not that I'm not a fan of that, but you know what?
They chill out a bit.
I remember being in
Love it.
Vegas and
Do you?
and someone smoking in a casino, and I said, I don't even smoke, but can I have a cigarette just so I can smoke indoors because I'd never done it.
You feel like that when you're over there. Everyone's smoking. You're like, I might go and buy it back or something, or at least a cigar or something. Not that I did, but you sort of feel like.
Well, the
you
flip
have
side,
to.
the flip side of being so nanny state overseas is when you do go overseas, it's so exciting because you're like, oh my God, I get to do this.
Yeah. That's why South America is like,
That's another level.
Yeah, you turn up and you're off a leash for the first time in your life. Ah!
You got to have some rules. Some rules are good for
yeah.
society. It's just not too many, and and I suppose that leads into. What rules are we going to have in our industry,
Advisor
guys?
group letter to who's the current Prime Minister?
Prime Minister. That'd be Mal, Big Mal.
No, the state Premier.
Mate, I got no idea.
Gladys.
Yeah, open letter from XY Advisor. Remove lockout laws.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, look, it's not so much that. It's just people should be allowed to police themselves to an extent, and
Well,
once you're over 18, are you an adult or not?
Correct. And to your question that you just posed is what rules are we going to accept and take on in our industry? It's a very good question. We've been bombarded with FASEA, with the Royal Commission, with the Productivity Commission.
Yeah, the superannuation report that came out.
Super report.
Oh my God, that's a headache and a half. 512 pages of scintillating reading.
I know. You're the only person that I know has even opened it up. I assume you didn't read all 512.
No, there's an abridged 82-page version.
Oh,
I've
thank
had a go
God.
at. But look, where do I start?
I don't know. Is it?
You have it, yeah.
I'm
have you
presuming
heard
there's a
about
whole
it?
lot of stuff that's not really that much to write home about, and then.
Look, the amount of change in this industry right now, I've never seen it. And I've been, listened to the last one. I've been around and I've seen a fair bit, and I've been through a lot of change. But the amount of change in this industry right now is phenomenal.
What do you think?
Phenomenal.
Okay, so it has to be coming from someone. What do you think is if you were to sum it up in one goal from somewhere, who's trying to do what?
Everyone's trying to do everything. Okay, that's the problem. Right. And I think that's the problem. The industry doesn't work well together.
Right.
We don't play nice together. Right. Everyone's got an agenda. Everyone's trying to push their own agenda. And we're not actually thinking about the one thing that actually counts, which is, fixing Australians' financial freedom, fixing up their lifestyles, making them more financially secure, taking financial stress out of the world. That's what we should all be trying to work on. Just because you've got a product or please spare me.
I'd argue it's shareholders' faults. Short-term requirements from CEOs to keep on chasing the carrot sort of thing.
So how do you argue that the industry super network are non-for-profit, but they're up to their necks in this as well?
True.
Which is not shareholders.
And we're still to
stakeholders.
See that'll be...
Yeah, that's a very good point.
David Whiteley's put out a message recently. He was the ex-CEO. He's moved on somewhere else, but they're very anti the measures that the Productivity Commission put forward, which was a very interesting
Which
take.
is the top 10...
Well, it's just
blah, blah.
Well,
the jobs have to go.
Well, that's because it takes away their current mandate for default super.
You're right.
And look, the argument is that they've done a great job with default super, and their my super or their default returns are better, less fees, which is right. But the other side is, as we all know, and even they admit, good advice produces an even better outcome.
Yeah, I think the simple arguments that have been used on all sides over the last 10, 15 years, certain marketing campaigns, all that stuff is about to just be blown out of the water because there's a look-through going on that's going, what's happening after that? Great.
Mate, massively. And you overlay that with, in 2 weeks' time, super's on the docket at the Royal Commission. You fold these things in, and political pressures, and who knows what's going to happen. It's an inflection point in this industry that we will look back on, I think, in 10 years' time and go, that's when it all changed. I have no idea what the landscape will be. Yeah. Clayton keeps on asking me this.
I want an answer. I just want an answer.
And the bloody thing's not working. It's cloudy. I'm going, I don't know, mate.
Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen, but what would you say to advisors out there in terms of preparing for the change that may come off the back?
It depends on what your industry, what part of your advice model is. Some people won't be affected at all. Look, at the end of the day, you provide value at a fair price. You're going to have clients, repeat clients, turn up and look to you and refer people to you. That's a very simple model, and it's a very simplistic model. If you try and take things a bit further, corporate super, those sorts of areas, that whole area, corporate super and advisors in that's been dying for a while, but there's some really hardcore, great advisors in that space who do fantastic jobs for the employees and the employers and add value to the super funds and everywhere. That's under threat as well at the moment.
Yeah, and that's that cross, just that top 10 sort of concept.
I just feel it's a race to the bottom. It's a race to default. Since when is default great for people? A default situation.
Yeah.
They're spending all this money on all these, educational things, and it's actually beyond that. You think about the governments and ASIC and APRA and all these bodies, the amount of investigations that are going on, and they're trying to legislate us out of a situation where people are apathetic about their money. Instead of actually working a way to inspire people to be non-apathetic about their money, to get them involved. How do you engage people? I mean, engagement's a favourite topic of ours. How do you actually get people to understand that superannuation isn't this big, and even the name is terrible, superannuation.
Oh my God, I've got a major gripe with that.
Right. But it's actually just delayed wages. It's a delayed salary. You're not getting paid, you're getting paid this much, 10% of it's going off there, and you're going to get that later. So look after it. If that was in your own bank account, would you just leave it there and go, hey, I don't know about that. I don't want to know about that. Let someone else deal with that. If that was your, if that had Paul Mann bank account, use it later, okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit of delayed gratification, but no one's into that these days.
Well, sometimes we've got no choice, do we?
Yeah, correct.
I know what you mean. Like, everyone wants it right now, but I'm sure there's smart people building great superannuation funds right now that have those sorts of features.
I haven't come across any, but yeah, let me know.
I heard about one recently, but let's not go there just yet.
So Dover, what's your opinion? What's going on here?
Look, we don't know that story yet fully.
Totally.
My concern is for the how many 40,000 clients is the number being thrown around that have all of a sudden haven't got financial advice, and maybe have had financial advice taken away from or the thought that financial advice is good. The integrity of financial advice chipped down a bit.
Yeah,
that worries me. It's not a good look for the industry. There's some great advisors in Dover, and I know that. And to have that rug pulled away from you must be horrendous.
Absolutely.
And I really feel for them. And, I've seen all the stuff that XY are doing for them, and I congratulate you guys. I tried to call Clayton on a Saturday morning to say, yeah, if you need me, mate, just let me know. Because, that's the one great thing about advisors. We do rally around each other.
There's been some great support.
Absolutely, and that's what we should be,
The issue is, so I don't think there's a lack of support for these guys in terms of opportunities. The problem's going to be is the nanny state that they have to navigate to make a chance. Even if you actually find someone that would love to have you.
Well, think about it.
You got the shit that has to go on.
30 days, so right? 30 days,
Absolutely.
I think, from go to woe, and just getting a police check, right, which turns up in the mail, takes 2 weeks to get. So,
and that's probably the easiest thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is probably
trying to work out where your education standings are right now. I mean, try and do that. Try. See,
that's
everyone's
why this
got an
is
opinion on
the
that.
only reason why. One of the major things, obviously, there's like the brand damage and like the personal perception damage for all these advisors and the clients that they're dealing with out there. But the reason why this is such a big thing is because everyone knows how messed up this process is that goes on. Like, if there was no issues and it was very efficient to actually transfer to another license, there's a whole process, like tech was used around it, then this wouldn't be such a big thing. It's
totally.
like, okay, electronic communication to the client, whatever it is, like it would just be...
So why is this industry like this? Why, and I'm going to, look, you guys talk to more people in this space than anyone. You look at the list of podcasts you guys have done, which is phenomenal. It's great work. You're talking to everyone, right?
Yeah.
So how have we got ourselves into this mess is my question.
I think it's commissions. I think we started with one-page financial advice, and then on that page of financial advice it said put your your money with this product. It's going to pay me this commission. Then everyone came along and said, well, we're going to stop that from happening. So you got to jump through all of these hoops, and which people say it's only a strategy to get the same result anyway. Then we've taken commissions out of investment products now. And so I'm like, well, why do we still need this massively convoluted SOA, whereas there's no more commissions, especially in investment or superannuation products?
Well, it's a little bit Buffett-esque, that, isn't it? Saying, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. That's one of his favourites.
Yes.
Right? So,
well, I think
that's it's all about incentives.
But that's definitely one part of it. That's an element. But I think it's got to do with even we were talking to Vince before, like the ease of. So you think about the apathetic population. You go, okay, someone they'll talk to you, like they'll engage with you. They'll engage you because they actually engage with you. It may not be about what you're actually going to do with them or whatever. They may just like you. They know they should be talking to someone. What are simple value propositions to deal with people? Like the hardest stuff in advice is working through the behavioural, all that sort of stuff and managing.
Most of the time spent on doing... The hardest thing is getting people through underwriting on insurance. But the biggest thing for the client is actually sitting there doing their cash flow and working through that.
All that sort of
that's
stuff.
what they want to know.
But the simple conversations...
I know what you're saying.
Well, it's the investment... When I first started, the investment conversation was one of the... You just tap into greed and you get a client. That's it. And that's
you want more money? Here we go.
That's exactly... And that's the easiest way. That's the simplest value proposition, and it's been used for a long time. And when you have that, that's directly linked. What you're delivering there is a product, essentially, because it's obviously there's the investment management, but it's so close to the product that because of that tight relationship, It's not the advice, and like you can go into the whole aligned aspect, but on the ground when you're talking about why it's continued is because it is an easy value proposition and an apathetic population who likes the idea, who greed is quite a trigger for people to engage.
It's a basic human.
That's what you get. So like
greed and
that's
fear.
the challenge, because it's not there wasn't enough friction. So that was the easiest path of least resistance for a lot of advisors. And it still is one of the, like, and that's...
Do you think we haven't defined what we do well enough?
I think it's too broad, maybe.
Maybe
I think it's because
you go
it's
to an
so hard
accountant
to
for this.
define.
Like, well, is it? Are we
Because
trying?
it's the intangibles
Are we
piece.
trying to do too much? Are we trying to be everything to everyone and be that?
Who else is going to do it for
them? Their accountant. No. That's beyond. Like, are we trying to be too much? Are we trying to be the glue?
Yeah,
in every sandwich. And I'm not. I don't know. I'm just
you
chucking
put forward
that
a good
out
point,
when you're
because
saying that,
I think accountants
too
and
broad? And people
advisors
go,
have
what
been on that
actually
journey for a little while now, to be that one throat to choke, so to speak, to be that center, the quarterback to someone's life. I think that's kind of where we went.
The accounting industry didn't really take on what we do. You think back naturally, they should have been
Absolutely,
doing what we
they
were
should
doing.
have.
Well, the majority
But
of them don't
they
actually...
never wanted to.
Like I was saying, we were just talking before, majority don't understand what financial planning is.
No, not unless
So if you
they
go
moved
financial
into
advice, they're going, that's what I do. I advise businesses around their finances. And then you drop in wealth. Oh, yeah, so you manage their investments. And that's like a big proportion.
Absolutely.
And it's really hard. Like,
the
'cause you think
insurance piece.
Well, yeah, and the insurance. But it's because like they're an industry built on tangible benefit. And part of our industry is built on tangible benefit.
And part of it's intangible.
And part of it's intangible. And the biggest benefit sits with the intangible. And by nature of the description there, it's hard for a lot of people to grasp sometimes.
It is. It's not as simple as super insurances and investments, like, which everyone says. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
And that's an issue when it comes to licensing, because how do you license? Because I've thought about this. I've got a lot of mates who are tradies and those sorts of things. And I was kept on thinking how simple it is for them to structure their businesses. They do 3 or 4 years at tech while they're an apprentice. They work under someone for a while. Then they have some supervision periods. And they can go out by themselves and they can get a gold license or whatever it is. But there's this absolute transition to getting to that stage of being a master.
So you're all for the professional year then?
Look, I've had 20 professional years, I reckon. And experience. There's nothing beats experience, and there's nothing better than working under someone who knows a whole lot more than you. So whether you structure it as a professional year, I would actually say you probably need more.
Financial planning apprenticeship, 3-year apprenticeship.
You probably need more. Like, you come through and let's be honest, you can go and do your degree, advanced, whatever it is, you do all those things. But I've seen it so many times. You plonk a really brilliant person in front of someone and they freeze up. They can't talk to them. They can't actually get that other side, that soft skills that used to be trained as sales skills, but that's a bad word now. And those sorts of things. So how do you get someone to be able to use their knowledge to actually help someone?
Well, the traditional way of people becoming advisors, or the sort of from the ground up journey, there's a huge issue with that, because what are advisors looking for when they're looking for support? They're looking for someone to complement the stuff that a really good advisor probably usually isn't as good at doing, which is a lot like someone that's great at engaging with people, great with sort of navigating sort of the emotional landscape with people. They're not always going to be that great with the detail stuff that comes on the back end that's all required to be done. So if you go, okay, the journey's going to come from, someone does paraplanning for a bit. When they become a really good paraplanner, then they'll become an advisor. You've got a huge disconnect.
It's almost like we've got a wrong graduation process.
It needs, and I know everyone's trying to solve it, and I don't know what the answer is, but like I said, I look at the trades area and they've got it nailed. And there is no... worry. If you don't like the tradies, don't bring him back, right? If he does a bad job, he's got insurance and things like that, and you go and use another one. They fee for service, and it's an hourly rate or whatever it is, plus costs. And it's pretty clear. And they don't have to say, look, why... Imagine if an electrician came round and had to explain which wire they were using, why they chose that wire, all the options that they thought instead.
The wires they didn't choose.
Right. I've got this light switch. Now, there's 45 different types of these. I've selected 5 of them. I've chosen this one because of these features. I did consider all these different ones.
It's a
imagine
real depressing
that.
analogy.
And they had to give you, just to rewrite, they had to give you a 70-page document to say that. What if you went to a doctor, same sort of thing, and he gives you a prescription for this? Do you ever question why he gave you the prescription for that?
I specifically asked them not to tell me, because I'm getting surgery on Monday, right, for hernia, and the anaesthetist gives me a call up and he goes, "Do this, do that, blah blah blah," and he goes, "Do you want to know of all the things that could go wrong?" I said, "No, specifically don't tell me what could go wrong. I don't want to know."
So, and we go in with that trust.
Yeah.
And they do not have to produce a document. They do not have to, because we've got trust in that industry and the structure, the integrity of the structure of that industry. That we go, well, they've done this much training, they've had supervision. If they're there, we trust that they've had the right training. Now, just like financial advisors, there's been rogue doctors who shouldn't be there and are doing the wrong thing, but they get weeded out eventually. Hopefully there's not too much damage.
Arguably, the damage is not as reversible as financial planning damage.
Potentially. It's pretty scary to think about that. Same with an electrician, same with these guys. Like, the dodgy electrician who wires it up wrong, you're getting zapped. Where's your recourse? Well, you go sue or whatever. So why has this industry solved its problems through legislation and extra ass covering, whatever you call it? How have we ended up here? And how are we going to get ourselves out of it? How do we build ourselves into someone coming over and going, "Well, Paul, I want you to give me financial advice," and I'll go, "Well, this is what you should do." And not, I don't mind giving you a document, outlining it and having a great relationship. Should I have to spend, 2 weeks producing statements of advice for this one case for no material benefit to anyone, really?
I had a meeting today and I'm like,
really? Who's benefiting?
And there's some real stuff like the advice is...
Totally. The dealer group, I guess.
No, but they're not benefiting.
Well, it gives them a reason to exist.
No, well... A good dealer group, we've had these discussions, and I'm not afraid of getting rid of dealer group.
Tell us what you really think.
But the dealer group is there as a community, I see, and it should be a community that you fit in. So that's why you got to be careful when you pick your dealer group, and you got to fit in with them. You got to have the right culture. You've got to have alignment, because the idea is that you're meeting other people who have similar practices, and you're centralising support and reducing your costs. That's why they sort of started.
Do you need a dealer group if you've got XY advisor?
Yes,
not.
you definitely need a license.
Oh, you need a license. I'm not saying no, you can keep the license, but the stuff you're
I don't need
about.
a license. I'm a part of XY.
Here you go. What if
the community rationale?
Yeah, and look, we're just chucking it around here. But how about you just get individually licensed because you have done your dues, you've kept it going.
Like the carpenter with the golden license.
Oh, there we go. Something like that.
Right.
What if you are that person and it doesn't cost you $100,000 plus 9 months to get a license? It shouldn't. It should be, well, you've ticked the box and you got your annual subscription and there you go. Because you've got the right to actually do what you're doing. I mean, becoming an accountant, you've got to do the same things. You've got to join the industries, but they don't have to do what we have to do. Dealer groups, do they make it easier? I think dealer groups are again, that aligned piece. They've come from that. And then the individual dealer groups. It's funny because probably 2-3 weeks ago, everyone was saying it was the death of the vertically integrated model with, the Royal Commission. And then all I've been reading since Dover fell over is that now independent dealer groups are no good, and they've been tainted. It's like, well, who is any good? Like,
the
what are we
problem is
supposed to do?
The problem is there's not
question,
enough.
It's like everyone's got it. It's just been
There's
chucked
no
around.
incentive
Like,
for anyone to come in and take on like a sizable dealer group at the moment. Like, who would want to, in their right mind, take on risk? And this is one of the biggest issues that's going on. is a mispricing of risk in the market.
Absolutely.
So you've got all, like, apparently the figures are ridiculous, but the pricing of licensee costs and figures is already completely subsidised. All sorts of different structures. Like, there's all sorts of different ways you can do it through whether you're offering technology and you're making money on there, whatever it is, products. There's a few different ways you can do it. But the market rate, technically what an advisor pays, is actually below the risk costs that goes into it. And arguably the risk costs, so a subsidised rate is there at the moment, and arguably the market rate has just shot through the roof. So you got a situation where, like, the actual market rate for risk is actually way above what is
What the
anyone
company is
You could
earning.
probably run a correlation between that and the value of practices at the moment as well.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It's probably a direct.
So there's an issue there, like structurally, I reckon. And like I remember talking, I can't remember who we were talking. It might have been with Dante or someone previously, going on about the accountants they've got that centralised, and the lawyers have this centralised liability scheme. What does it makes? And they've got way less regulation and requirement. Like, you'd think, okay, what's a prerequisite to have one of these schemes? Oh, okay, we'll have a lot of strict rules. Like, make sure that, like, if the government's going to support something like that people have to play within the rules. Well, the most regulated industry in Australia, well, I think we've got those. So why not have a bloody centralised?
We've got too many rules. That's the problem.
And that would actually set a benchmark of risk. Have a really clear framework about, like, and maybe you throw in individual licensing. Maybe that and you got the reg tech
whether it's
coming
licensing
through.
or whether it's individual. Like, solicitor is a classic one, right? You pass the set
bar
exams, and
Well, we've got an
that's
exam
it.
coming through as well. So there you
So
go.
you do this. You qualify to do the exam. You pass the exam. You should be okay, right? To practice, to set up a shingle, or you pay your fee to the government for whatever it is. But
I wonder
where does it? Why are we so convoluted?
Well, we've only just let go of products. That's the reason.
Yeah.
Products have only just been let go, and it's a new thing. Value proposition disconnected from products. I was talking to someone yesterday actually, and they're like talking about some of the SOAs we do, and they're like, we do SOAs now without product. And that's it's not a completely new thing, but this is actually like an institutionalized. Well,
because isn't that the reason to do an SOA? Because you
because
kind
it's
of
dictated
cover
product.
all these
Exactly.
bloody conflicts.
I know. Well, I'd be attracted to it. It's probably like a much shorter SOA.
Yeah. Here's the advice. You pick the product.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much.
Wow.
And like you think about the liability that drops off there as well, and the values kept intact. A lot of the values still kept intact.
Well,
And then you might go to an implementation place that hasn't given the advice. So you might have an implementation specialist that delivers.
You can just have like a Sprout Super poster on the wall as they walk out.
what's Sprout Super? He can't have.
I don't know. Jack in the
drop it in
Beanstalk decide to start a super fund or something.
just stick it on the poster. Do you have your Sprout Super app?
But the problem is, the advice
I like
is
that
great.
business model.
You give the advice without the product, but then the amount of products and the
Totally. It's a complex
and that's the
environment.
problem with
And that's the reason why it still
superannuation.
has to be connected.
That's the problem with superannuation. There is a lot of superannuation funds. How are people meant to choose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be connected.
Just get a list of 10. Yeah,
Well, yeah, imagine the
as well, like, please, but
the electrician's like, so you can have this, and this wire. Take your selection. I'll implement it for you.
Imagine that. But imagine if that's what it was. These are 10 potential super
Wires
funds.
that you got,
Yeah, that's...
Would that negate it? If you go, here's a selection. We haven't recommended which one.
Because that's the Productivity Commission, right, has come out and said it's going to
So-
be top 10 that all employers have to use.
Essentially, and this is very simplistic, there's a lot of different recommendations, and they have specifically mentioned in there that advice is still needed in this in there.
Oh,
in that,
that's nice.
I know, it's good of them. But basically, what they're doing is taking the onus off the employer choosing a super fund for their employees and putting it straight back onto the employee. So they don't have to get involved.
Everyone's outsourcing.
Just like when you join a new company, they say, give me your bank account for your pay. They'll say, give me your bank account for your pay and give me your super fund. If you haven't got one, there's a system that allocates it. They don't have to get involved.
Here you go, apathetic people. Make a choice.
Which is the New Zealand system to an extent. The KiwiSaver system is like that.
Wasn't that invested in cash? I remember seeing one that was just like...
No, there were six choices to start off with.
Okay.
And they were a default situation. It was 2%. You could get it out to buy a house at some stage and things like that. It has evolved.
In Finland, where Vera is from, you put money aside and you basically purchase units in your government pension.
Oh, you get a proportion of, like, it's almost like still a defined scheme.
It's all defined, but how much you put
You're
in
getting the
is how
proportion.
much you
There's
get
not
out.
many governments who would take that risk on anymore, and that's been the evolution of our whole
That'd
superannuation
be great.
system.
Yeah,
That's
do you want to
why-
buy shares in an unfunded liability?
I think the government would love to do that here. They're looking at 2.5 trillion and being like, well, we could use that.
I'm sure they've kicked the tyres a few times.
Yeah.
And the future fund and all that, but that's a mammoth task and a lot of talk about pricing risk.
Yeah, what's
And
the
that-
ROI on
and
government investment?
And I think the other side of this is we are beating this system up incessantly, but the amount of money and wealth that it's created for Australians is quite phenomenal. It is
Totally.
seen across the world as one of the best systems. And here we're just, because of all this infighting and all the different agendas from each,
I'm interested,
it's really
mate.
hurting everything.
What if you could do?
Don't ask me how to solve it, mate.
Well, I want to, I'm
Hey,
going to.
You've got more grey hair than us, so
Mate,
I've got
qualified.
no hair. No.
I'm going to ask you.
He's got a couple of
Oh,
starting.
here we go.
I noticed that
Here
yesterday.
we
I saw him yesterday.
Righto. All right. So if you could do a couple of things, what would you do to improve the whole industry, Paul?
Look, my main focus would be, and it's very simplistic, but education, and really making sure that it's not about default. If I could change anything in super, I would make it not about default. That super funds, if possible, would be incentivised to have people not in default. To have people in the right asset class for their circumstances, not their age, not I'm a 1970s to 1980, whatever it is, for their personal circumstances.
Or comfort.
Well, as an advisor, sometimes you've got to take people outside their comfort zone because it's good for them, right? Because you know what's better
But
for
who's
them.
going to do that?
I think we can. Someone needs to. If I could
Well, who does
do
that
something-
besides an advisor?
No one.
There you go.
And this is where, the industry funds, they say they look after people, and I'm sure they do with the returns, but they like people just staying in default and not moving. Same with the retail funds, whatever you call them, wholesale funds, those, very similar. They have advisors attached and they try and get people in front of them.
But the cost to serves goes up if people are too engaged. So you don't want that. Like the actual...
He's almost as cynical as me.
Oh, mate, don't even get him started.
Yeah, but not if there's scale.
Well,
And I've run businesses like that where if you give a lot of advice to a lot of people, get your systems right, you can give advice
Well, it's something that we've
on
been...
scale
Totally.
to people who aren't going to pay much for it. It can be done.
Well, something, a sort of a theme that we've been teasing out of people recently is people are doing something really simple or occasionally slightly dressed up. But the goal is to figure out what someone's personality is and how they like to be communicated with. And you're kind of touching on this, is to figure out what people want, because I guess to your mind, default means failure to understand and to customize someone's plan, right?
Well, it's ambivalence, right?
Right.
If you're in default, you have not touched it.
Right. So theoretically, when someone joins an employer, they could do a short personality test or something like that, or even something as simple as like maybe even a one question risk profile, even something as simple as that.
There's a lot of technology out there.
one of the things, like you're talking about engagement and the apathetic, like I've always gone, okay, well, one of the biggest impacts from a financial standpoint of less engaged people is more welfare expenditure when people retire. That's the outcome. That's a financial outcome. The government budget gets hit. And you'd think that would be enough incentive. They want to regulate everything else. Why not give a cash back or a tax incentive for people to seek financial advice? Like, what about that? Like, just it doesn't have to be huge.
Well, the whole
just
reason,
enough incentive.
The whole
to
reason
get people
superannuation was invented back in the day, in the Keating was to take the burden off the future welfare payments.
And it's gonna,
absolutely.
Wait. Wasn't it so that unions could be in control of more money?
There is a bit of that going on, but let's be honest. No, you're going to get me hunted down. That again. I think the essence of superannuation, why it was created, was pure. But of course, once you have a sum of money, the size it is,
sum of money,
people cannot keep their hands off it.
Right.
People are going to be in there and they're going to be feeding off it. And whether it's governments taxing it or whether it's institutions or, associations or whatever you call them, they will be there.
Is there a better system in the world than the Australian superannuation system? Is there one that's...
Well, there's not one that's as fully engaged. When I say engaged, as fully
across the board
as a default situation. Yeah. It is pretty strong.
There's
probably a few of the Scandinavian countries and those sorts of places, but you go to the US and it's a lottery.
They've got a few different things. Don't
well,
they?
the 401k, but it's a very convoluted system and it's a voluntary system that your company will buy into. But if you're not earning enough, and it's very
linked to the
complex.
employer.
Yeah, and you can only change it once a year. That's a unique feature of the 401. You've got a little window of a couple of weeks where you can change your investments and your insurance.
That right?
Oh, wow.
And then that's it.
Really
you can't touch it for 12 months.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I reckon we've got the flip side of such a good system. The flip side of such a good system, which is mandated, you've got the market's been taken out of it. It's people are forced to put money inside super. And I know there's like hardliners that go, super's bad, like you got to give people the choice. But without it, you're not going to even get that baseline of support for the government balance sheet 20, 30 years time sort of thing. So that's at least like you got that baseline. But the flip side is that because it's forced, people aren't getting forced to actually develop ways of engaging. Like there's no requirement for a business. Like there's these default plans. Like there's no requirement for someone to compete with a value proposition necessarily. And like it's going on, but there hasn't been enough of a requirement to really bring innovation and what goes on in other spaces where you go, there's money up for grabs, but like people have to hand it over to you first. It's not just sitting there. This way, you've got people that you got there's this pool of money there, and the people are over here, and you sort of go. And
that's what the Productivity Commission came and said. Like really, at the moment, under the award structure, 70% of the market is tied up with industry funds through mandates. So there is no competition as such. You're a nurse, you go with the nurses one. You work in retail, you go with the retail one. Like it's
such a weird thing.
Well, look, that's the unions forcing those issues and protecting people. And look, I'm sure their motives are absolutely pure in that way. But again, the sums of money and from my point of view, what they're doing with it isn't good enough.
The good thing,
not that the banks and everything. Like I'm not saying they're better because obviously we know they're not. But I think the whole system needs to get better. Let's not have sides. Let's solve the problem for the
Let's maybe get it a bit more standardised.
Well,
if we limit it to 10.
To 10, yeah. Well, I don't understand.
Well, the good thing about like the industry funds with that the groupings is around the insurance side of things. So for some more specialist sort of that has been a good outcome.
Maybe.
But arguably you could actually have that disconnected from super.
Some of it's pretty the industry funds aren't renowned for having sensational insurance options.
Average across the board, it's pretty ordinary. But for niche like police and things like that, military, you've got some.
Oh, absolutely, and there's.
But does that need to be linked to a super fund?
Well, is that a super fund? Why is it in super? Traditionally, super has been the centre of people's staff benefits for everyone, whether no matter your work, it's always been the hub. But I mean, there's an argument now that insurance shouldn't be in it. It's probably cheaper outside these days than the group premiums.
Yeah, you take comms out. Company, it's pretty competitive.
And in a choice environment, so think about this. And I heard this argument the other day. It used to be that a good company wanted to look after its people. It brought in a great super fund. It chose a default level of insurance life, maybe a great salary continuance cover, because it wanted to protect its people. It might subsidise some of it by paying overs in salary, SG contributions, things like that. But a good company was doing that. But that's been whittled away because in a choice environment, not everyone has to use that super fund. So you turn up and go, no, I don't want to use that, I want to use this one. It hasn't got that level of default. So the company's aim of protecting its people is taken away. So the company can still do that now. They should get rid of that, have a group policy, and then it becomes an attraction.
The only issue, right, and I keep on coming up against it, it's so frustrating, is the employees, like people move jobs so much. And you want to do a strategic long-term insurance plan, it just, you can't. Like, and you're sitting there going, they don't get money if they turn that off. And it's just so hard with the client. They're going, that's free. Why are we paying? I'm like, it's if you change jobs and you have had an accident or something in between, you cannot replace that.
Which is why, you write individual insurance for that person, that client. I totally agree. But there's all these things going on. The other part of the Productivity Commission was this, there shouldn't be default insurance if you're under 25.
Yeah, that one's interesting.
Why?
Because it takes away from your balance of your super when it's starting out. I think that's the general.
Because if you're under 25 and
there's
you're
that and
permanently injured or disabled, sucked in?
There's that, and there's a prescribed level about $6,000 where if your balance goes under $6,000,
yeah, that's a joke. Because how many times did I ever do that? Just leave $5,000 in a.
Well, what about market conditions going up and down? Like, all of a sudden we have a bit of a correction and everyone loses their insurance in those lower balances.
It's in complete
even though they're
conflict
building.
For like someone. The younger you are, the more TPD you need. It's just like a lot of the time it's the case.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's how it is. Like, and it's
so weird that if you're under 26, you don't get TPD.
The fact it's been linked to death is like the death doesn't need to be there. But
I could understand that, but definitely TPD.
Separate it out,
take it out of super.
Get people informed and take them.
I reckon there's another government incentive coming along. You got the baby bonus.
The government
You've
insurance
got
program.
buy a house bonus. What about the huge liability unfunded on the balance sheet? Short term with insurance, long term with superannuation. Incentivise the fuck out of everyone to do it. You want to do it with everything else. That's actually when you.
Whenever something comes up to do with the government, I just send it to Paddy. I'm like, hey mate, do you want to put your nose into this? And he's like, yes.
Yes, I do.
If they know what's good for them, they'll let me decide.
There's so many variables. So many variables.
But that would just fix it.
Because you suggested
for everyone.
Yeah.
For everyone. Enough carrot, enough stick.
Adrian for PM.
Absolutely.
Oh, shit. No one wants that job anymore.
This is not a nanny state anymore if that happens.
Oh, that would be fun, wouldn't it?
You're allowed to drink in the street again, that's for sure.
That is definitely for sure. That is when life becomes a bit more enjoyable in Sydney.
I've got to say, as an Australian, I've never once been picked up for roadie. I've walked around many a street drinking a beer until it's finished, and then you nicely place it in a bin. I've never had a cop go,
yeah, but you don't feel comfortable doing it.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah,
it's not great, but at the same time,
and you can't just buy a beer from a news agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the funnest things I reckon I did in Europe was I was in Berlin. And you go in, and it's like going
It's anywhere in Europe or Asia.
It's a random
or
convenience.
America.
Well, but it's a random convenience store, like going into a boutique exotic beer place in Sydney, and the beer is like $2, and you go, I'm going to have a beer, and I'm going to walk outside, and I'm going to just walk along the street and enjoy my beer.
It's mad. I love it. Roadies.
You go to McDonald's and go, I'll have the Big Mac meal with a beer.
Yeah.
That is living. Please tell me you did that on your honeymoon.
No, I didn't. I've done it before.
He got a
Spain's
Pinot.
better for that. I don't think I went to McDonald's. We were doing better than that.
No, I know. I was tracking you on Facebook. God, you leave in business class, and I was like, okay, I'm prepared. I'm willing to watch this now.
Well,
hey, it's still honeymoon. He's really got to lock this shit down. It's still
exactly. You don't want an annulment.
This is the after sales service.
Exactly.
It's implemented.
You got to do this every day, right? Exactly.
He knows what he's doing, Clay.
Yeah.
No rookie, mate. Actually, I've already picked up a couple of good tips.
On how to nail your wedding.
Don't share them.
Yeah, no. Up here. Yep.
You pass that on when it's necessary.
Absolutely. Yes.
How are we going to solve this?
All right. He gave you the answer.
Who knows? Yeah. Well, that's only the insurance piece.
And then
No, that was the super as well.
Oh, okay.
Super and insurance.
but super ends up on the commish next week, right?
Yeah.
So what are we expecting out of that?
Well, have you been able to predict it so far? Have you been able to predict what's happened at this
No.
Royal Commission? It's been like mind-blowing.
Yes.
And I've listened to a few your podcasts and people coming on, like the AFA guys and that, going, we were against it, but then we thought, no, we shouldn't be. But I think we're all for it,
Yeah.
as long as the result
Yeah.
is the right result. Now, we don't know what that is.
It's been some weird scalps.
Well, look,
It's
let's
been
be
some
honest, it's a
weird
Royal
scalps.
Commission. They're not looking for the good stuff.
Yeah, but I
They're
just
not.
like some
They're
really
not
random.
looking, that's not what a Royal Commission does. They look for the really bad stuff
Yeah.
and weed it out, highlight it, and say you need to fix this. That's like,
You got situations where my mate like Sam Henderson ended up on there, and it was just, I mean, what he got in trouble for was just outrageously. He should never have been there, in my humble opinion. Like I just could not believe it that he ended up a scalp of the Royal Commission. Like what the hell? Like if you're going to improve banking, financial services, superannuation, and everything like that, like I mean. He wasn't double gearing. He wasn't doing any of these things that's been known to take out advisors. And yet, just ding, a finger just lands on his head. I couldn't believe it.
well, look, unfortunately, Sam fortunately or unfortunately, puts himself out there, and you do that, there's a risk that
Oh,
you're going to be
man,
taken out.
unbelievable.
And that's whether you like it or not, that's a risk of putting yourself out there. I was actually caught up with a very senior industry veteran the other night. He's a really great guy. He's been in the industry he's almost 70. We had a few beers, and he really feels passionately that if ASIC had solved the Storm financial situation properly, that we would not be in anywhere near the mess we're in currently.
And what does
so
properly
how?
look like?
Yeah.
Well, not what they did, right? Let it go. Everyone knew that there was the wrong things going on there. Everyone knew, and all of a sudden it blew up at the very wrong time, which, everyone,
Well, that's the sort of thing that happens when you've got something that's not the right setup.
Exactly. But there was no intervention, and whether they didn't have the resources or didn't have the guts, I don't know. But his view was that if that had been solved, but it wasn't, and they let things go, and all of a sudden everything spiraled out of control, and now they're trying to put the genie back in the bottle.
But they did stop double gearing.
It was too late.
Yeah, okay.
What they knew about that, and
Oh,
it
you
wasn't-
mean if they'd stepped in prior
Yeah,
to it exploding?
absolutely.
Right.
and I know. Look, I got someone showed me what they were doing years and years ago. They wanted. It was someone at the place I worked, and they were using Storm, and he said, "Oh, come and show me. I want you to see this, and you could use it in your business. It's really great." I was like, well, "What happens if the market goes down?" And they didn't have an answer for that. So no thanks, right? And being an ex-futures trader, like the markets go down,
Yeah,
so
it hurts with futures too.
even more, and that's pricing risk. So so how these things that are sold to unsophisticated people with commissions, whatever the unlimited riches coming out of it, it was a recipe for disaster. And it's a blight on the industry because it was a major. It
It's one
wasn't
of the
just
more structural sort of
It had and ASIC knew about it. The CBA were involved. There was people involved. Fines have gone out, but was it ever really? Have we really fixed that up, or we just you can't do double gearing anymore? Like, there's so many ethical as well as structural questions around that, and
Which commissions within investments?
well, they were doubling up on every stage.
Yeah, exactly. So stripping out commissions from investments, getting rid of double gearing. I think they're two good moves.
It's pretty. We've talked about this before on the podcast, and it's like, well, that was taking commissions for investments was one of the simplest, most effective impacts on the industry.
In my opinion, brilliant. Yeah.
And it seems to work.
And you didn't need to do all the other stuff. Just do that.
So but there's still commissions in life insurance.
Yeah.
In insurances, is that going to work? Yes or no?
Yeah, it's the issue.
You look at mortgage
insurance.
broking.
The issue with insurance is, from my understanding, all over the world, as soon as you take out commissions from insurance, it just stops because no one wants.
They were created with commissions.
Yeah, and if that's the argument, and I've never looked at the research, but if it's legit that. Show me where in the world they've tried to sell insurance and not have commissions and it just doesn't sell, then okay, you got me. But obviously superannuation needs to be invested, right? It's all there. So yeah, it doesn't need to be sold. Super doesn't need to be sold. So absolutely get rid of the commissions there. And then with mortgages, because the mortgage broker isn't recommending what house to be purchased and isn't recommending the size of the loan to purchase the house, they're not a part of that recommendation. I personally don't see a conflict. I personally just see it as
they're
as a
recommending
service.
what product to use. It's very
Sure,
similar
but it's
to
much
us.
to muchness. That, like in my view, the
It's
insurance.
very similar. It's just a different.
The issue that I have with insurance is the person who's recommending the amount is receiving the commission. So there's a conflict
So it's a
there.
mortgage broker.
No, because the couple or the person whoever it is walking in and saying, "I'm buying this house," and then the mortgage broker goes, "Okay, well you need a loan."
There is.
So they're not recommending an amount.
There's still a little bit of an impact there because you don't have as much resistance to reduce. Like to go because you
better borrow more, do this, and I'm not saying that's what goes because I've seen again it's those small minority, and that's where mortgage brokers they've had investigations and there's been a lot of turmoil in that industry
place
as well.
That's what's going to bring the economy down.
And that selling
you heard it
investments,
here.
gearing it up.
You heard it here.
It happened last time.
Whereas really
I mean, like
ran
just
teams
the
of mortgage
rules.
brokers, and the idea was to pay the mortgage off as quick as possible. Let's get you the best one that you can pay off as well as possible. But there's always that minority when commissions exist who are going to take advantage of it. And that's a problem.
Perhaps it's just a flat fee. I don't know how to solve the commission and the insurance.
I don't think anyone does.
Issue.
That's the problem.
Well,
Otherwise, you'd think it'd be solved.
Well, one thing that would help with lending would be giving the option because we were talking about with Steve Crawford the other week, like you don't have the option. So I looked into it. Like I was like, okay, I've taken comms out of insurance. Cool. I started having conversations about comms, no comms, and
What, you can't take comms out of a bank loan?
you can't. Like the structural, that's why we were talking to
Whoa.
Vin Scully before. No. He has to rebate it. So you got this whole administrative nightmare that opens up to actually facilitate that sort of
It does.
effect.
You have to take. Yeah, it's.
That's crazy.
So because there's that structure's not there, and that's like if anything comes out, at least giving the option for that to happen would be a good thing, because then you price what's the value a broker delivers to the party. It's like sort of when you have to have the discussion around no comms for insurance.
The only thing I would say about that is that's a product provider's challenge. Because
Well, it's not a challenge. They don't want to do it.
They don't want to do it. If you could take, you take your commission out and there's a like for like drop in the premium, and you're charging a fair fee, you'd do that.
That's
every
a market
day.
activity.
But you take it out and you go, well, hang on, that's not fair. The product provider keeps more, you get paid less, and no one actually wins. The client needs to win,
Correct.
right? And they should provide those that flexibility.
Yeah, the structure
And
will
that's-
open up,
that's why
and
it
then the
exists.
market will come in and go, okay, what's my service proposition to?
Well, how come? I mean, there's little banks popping up everywhere, right? Why isn't there a bank popping up just saying
I
we can
think
take out commission if
There's
the broker
centralised
wants?
aggregators.
Well, it's not the bank. The banks make money. Imagine what the banks are making on their direct stuff.
Yeah,
You know.
fair play.
That's how they make money,
Yeah.
by the way, lending it out.
Yeah.
Nice margins on that. Have you seen the gap between the Reserve Bank rate and the home loan rate? It's quite large. Quite internationally quite
Did
large.
you
That's
see
how
how
banks make money.
Did you see how large that
Not out of
grew
fees.
during the GFC?
Yeah.
It was like
What do they
this,
call
and
that?
then
The gap? It's got a term.
the margin.
Nah, something else. But anyway, it was big. At 3-4% or something. Like
No, I don't think it's 3 or 4%.
it's at 2.5 now.
Yeah.
So when it blew out in the...
No, I don't think it ever got that big.
It would have gone.
Yeah, it's been all over the place, mate.
There you go.
So, yeah, look, there are structural issues. There's probably not enough competition around that as well. And I think we just need to think about the client more. Everyone. Not the shareholders need to be thought about, but that's at the end, you know. And it's not all hippie love and mung beans. Like, you know, people need to make money and live, you know, a life. And success should, you know, if you're very successful and do well, you should earn more. But not by convoluting.
Well, like one start would be, okay, well, you got an advisor that has great ideas. They grow into a practice that delivers great service. What are the impediments for them to grow and help more people? What's stopping them? What licensing, compliance, regulation issues are preventing that to regulate
putting on another advisor in your business is really tough. Finding them and then actually making that happen is a nightmare. It is very prohibitive. It's not just like getting a subby in when you're an electrician and getting another, you know, you just pay them a daily rate or whatever. You can't do that. So yeah, that's one of the big things, let alone, you know, where do you find your clients? But, you know.
Wow.
But again, if everyone was more engaged with their money, and that's a, you know, big term, you know, what we're talking about, 20 to 15% of people use financial advisors. Like, well, let's be honest, 90% of people need a financial advisor.
But it's too prohibitive cost-wise for the majority.
I actually don't think it is that. A lot of it is just fear and not knowing what to ask, what to do.
What to receive in value.
All you see in the papers is financial advisors are dodgy. So how are you going to go and pick one as an average punter who's no dummy, but, you know, an average punter who... how do you do that?
Literally.
Where do you start?
I avoid Adrian and then go from there. That's my two tips to anyone.
Oh, come on.
It's a Friday afternoon.
He sent me
silly.
He sends me people. So.
Exactly. So he should.
Actually, he is, yes.
So he should.
But I reckon... I was just going to say, like, I've got hope. You think about some of the marketing, the engagement, that like what people are doing now. Like, think about some of the discussions in the XY Advisor Group, other groups in the industry. Like, people are getting amazing at actually cutting through the bullshit, tapping into people, and actually pulling them into a better world of like financial maturity, etc.
Well, there's this whole industry that's born out of this now, which is the pre-advice industry. You know, there is a pre-advice industry, so getting people ready for advice. There's a big industry in that, and it's avoiding the conversations that we have, you know, whether it's financial counselling or, you know, you look at, you know, what's that, my budget, those sorts of, you know, they're
my
all...
budget, Map My Plan, you got Life Sherpa, you got Scott Pape, the Barefoot Investor.
Yeah, that's
Because he doesn't make any recommendations. Sorry, Scott. But you know, that whole pre-advice, you know, and institutions are building that. BT's built a really good platform, getting you, you know, what do you do? Go through a pre-assessment, then you know, and hopefully it gives you the ammunition to go in and say,
at least gives people tools.
So I know, do I need a financial advisor? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I tend to agree. If we grow the pre-advice...
Well, have you got these situations? Are you in this? Do you understand this? No, I don't. Okay, so I do need advice. How do I select one? What should I look for?
And if there's anyone out there looking to get advice, how would they get in contact with you?
truedirection.com.au, but you know.
Very good, very good. All right, mate. Well, thank you very much for coming on again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thanks, guys.
See you in 3 months.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.